Imagine standing on the bank of a broad, brown river where the smell of salt drifts in from a shallow inland sea. The sun is a white coin pressed into a hazy sky, and turtles bump like stones in the current. A herd of duck-billed dinosaurs steps down to drink, their feet printing crescents in the mud. Nothing moves, and then everything does. The water bulges, a ridge of armored scales lifts, and a jaw the size of a park bench closes with a sound like a tree splitting. In an instant, the river remembers its oldest predator. I'm your science guide today, a paleontology communicator who has spent years walking the fossil-rich riverbeds of the American West, and I want to take you back about 80 million years to meet the croc that ate dinosaurs, Deinosuchus. Not a dinosaur at all, but a giant alligator relative. Deinosuchus haunted the coastal rivers and estuaries that braided into the western interior seaway, a warm, shallow ocean that once split North America from the Arctic to the Gulf. In that landscape, the air tasted of salt and wet leaves, and every trail to water ended with risk. Based on skulls, massive vertebrae, and hundreds of armor plates called osteoderms, this animal stretched as long as a city bus and weighed several tons. Thick-bodied, low to the water, and built to weight. Paleontologists read its presence from the rocks the way trekkers read scuffs in dust. Where we find river channel sands and brackish marsh clays, we also find round, deeply pitted plates of bone, each the size of a dinner plate, locked together like a natural chainmail. We find teeth broad and blunt at the tips, perfect for crushing, with enamel crazed by a lifetime of hard work. And, most telling, we find dinosaur bones, hadrosaur tail vertebrae, the edges of limb bones, even turtle shells, scarred by U-shaped bite marks that match Deinosuchus' teeth in spacing and curvature. My friend Maya, a field paleontologist I met in Texas, likes to say that this is an animal you first meet by its shadows, a scatter of armor, a curve of jaw, a pattern of wounds on something else. On a late summer survey, the dry beds of an ancient channel, she and a local fossil hunter named Caleb flagged a cluster of vertebrae protruding from sandstone. The bones looked chewed. Under the hand lens, you could see grooves cross-hatching the surface, shallow at first, then deeper where a tooth skidded, bit, and broke through. That telltale story strike, twist, release lines up with how modern crocodilians subdue large prey. Even without a full skeleton, the riverbank felt crowded by presence. Deinosuchus was an ambush specialist, dark back barely breaking the surface. It would park itself in slow water, beside a crossing, or beneath overhanging roots, and let time do the work. Muscles held in stillness consume little energy. Patience is a predator's tool. When the moment came, a surge from the tail and a snap from the neck converted stored quiet into violent motion. You can reconstruct that motion from bone. The cervical vertebrae neck bones are short and strong, and the skull roof is thick, braced for forces that travel like earthquakes through the face. This is not the slim, narrow snout of a fish specialist, it is a battering ram with eyes. By comparing skull shapes and tooth wear with living crocs and gators, researchers infer a bite that could crack big turtles and shear through dinosaur bone at the water's edge. Imagine what that meant to a thirsty herd. The river could be a mouth. Every fossil beside those ancient channels is a voice in a chorus saying the same thing: drink carefully. The bones of this giant turn up from Montana to New Jersey and from Utah to Texas, a breadcrumb trail of armor and teeth laid down along river mouths and lagoons. On both sides of that inland sea, some sites belong to the western landmass we call Laramida. Others belong to the eastern landmass, Appalachia. Even its name hints at first impressions. Deinosuchus, the terrible crocodile, terrible as in awe-inspiring, the way distant thunder shakes your ribs. It was not the longest reptile in those waters, and it shared its world with tyrannosaurs on land and mosasaurs at sea. But at the water's edge it collected attacks every creature paid attention. Anatomically, it sits on the alligator side of the crocodilian family tree, which makes the American alligator a distant cousin rather than a descendant. We can look at how alligators build mound nests, how mothers guard hatchlings, how young spend early seasons tucked among reeds, and then ask whether similar scenes played out among Cretaceous cypress knees and fern beds. In the same layers that yield Deinosuchus armor, plant impressions, and pollen paint a world of coastal swamps and backwaters lined with conifers and flowering shrubs. A mosaic of habitats where a heat-loving ambusher could thrive. Growth rings in the armor plates suggest long lives punctuated by seasons of plenty and lean years, heartbeat written in bone. To understand how Deinosuchus hunted, we treat the fossil record like a crime scene. We have the weapon in the form of skull pieces and teeth, we have the setting in the river muds and channel sands, and we have the victims in bones etched with bites and scrapes. Start with the jaw. The snout is wide and deep, and the teeth along the back are rounded rather than blade-shaped, telling us this animal specialized in crushing rather than slicing. Think nutcracker, not steak knife. Where modern crocodilians tackle big prey, they often clamp, pull, and spin, a behavior nicknamed the death roll. You do not need to see a fossil spinning to test whether that happened in the late Cretaceous. You ask what kinds of forces the bones could carry. The skull roof of Deinosuchus is thick and buttressed, the neck joints are compact and strong, and the places where muscles anchored are broad, like the footprints of cables across stone. Put that together and you get an animal capable of wrenching and twisting while staying low in the water. Then look at the victims. In Alabama, Georgia, and Texas, hadrosaur bones preserve semicircular gouges, in pairs and triplets, that match the spacing of Deinosuchus teeth. Some of these marks show signs of healing, which means the dinosaurs survived the initial attack and lived long enough for bone to knit, only to encounter danger again later. A water hoe is not a battlefield for a few minutes a year. It is a hazard every day you need a drink. Smaller prey would have included giant turtles and fish, which explains the rounded teeth. But the bite marks on dinosaurs tell us the ambush sometimes scaled up dramatically. Imagine a juvenile tyrannosaur edging close at dusk, curious and thirsty, only to learn the first hard lesson of the river. All this paints a picture, but it becomes a story when you put people in it. Back in the lab, Maya prepared one of the chewed vertebrae we collected, a tail bone from a hadrosaur that showed to bites at different angles. In cross-section, the groove walls were crushed inward, not neatly punctured, and the bone surface under magnification was polished where something hard rubbed back and forth before the tooth tore free. That polish probably came from enamel underload, and the change in angle reads like a roll. While she worked, our friend Joy, a wildlife artist who paints living alligators on the Gulf Coast, stopped by with her sketchbook. She knows the look of water that is about to break. Her drawings reigned in our imaginations, no theatrical leaps, no leering monster, just a low, heavy body barely visible, the brief, economical exhale of a predator that spends most of its time in patience. That collaboration matters. It reminds us that science is not only measurement, it is communication, and pictures can keep us honest. At the same time, measurements push the art. We scaled the tooth spacing from bite marks, and compared it to known skulls to estimate which size Deinosuchus left which scars. The biggest marks came from animals on the order of 10 meters long, bus-length ambushers that turned river crossings into dice rolls. Smaller marks likely belong to younger individuals, which suggests multiple age classes shared the same waterways like a tiered danger system. Where does this leave the dinosaurs? Not helpless, just cautious. Tracks preserve hurried exits and milling around safer bars upstream. In places, we even find the footprints of large theropods parallel to the river, as if a patrol mapped the bank before committing to drink. The river, in other words, shaped behavior on land, and an invisible reptile set the rules. When we estimate its bite force, we do not try to resurrect muscles. We let geometry and modern analogs do the work. In living crocs, the depth and width of the snout and the size of the jaw joint correlate with how hard the animal can clamp down. Plug Deinosuchus dimensions into those relationships and you get numbers that live in the realm of bone failure, which fits the scars we see. But power alone does not make a hunter. Strategy does. The broad snout is good at shoving water aside without making a splash, and the eyes and nostrils sit high, allowing long waits with almost nothing exposed. Stable oxygen values preserved in its bones and armor imply that many individuals lived where fresh and salty water mingled, so a single river mouth could host an entire population to two tides. That brackish life would have brought migratory fish in season, nesting turtles on sandy bars, and thirsty herbivores when the uplands dried. Even the armor plates carry echoes of history. Their pits grew deeper as the animal aged, and the surface shows pauses and spurts like a diary with blank pages. Deinosuchus did not last forever. By the very end of the Cretaceous, a few million years before the asteroid, its trail fades from the rocks. The western interior seaway withdrew, shoreline shifted, and the broad, brackish rivers that favored this giant narrowed or moved. Other crocodilians endured in different niches, and distant cousins would eventually give us the alligators and caimans that slide through today's wetlands, but the bone-crushing ambusher of the Campanian vanished from the ledger. Extinction is not always a story of failure. Sometimes it is a story of change outrunning a narrow specialization. I think about that every time we map old channels across a desert of red stone. The river is gone, the predator gone, but the rules remain. Water concentrates life, and where life concentrates, strategy evolves. That is why the ancient water's edge fascinates us. It is a classroom in which fear and need sit side by side. Maya once brought a group of high school students to the outcrop where we found the chewed tailbone. She set the vertebra on the table, then passed around replica teeth and asked them to figure out what happened. The shy kid who loved fishing recognized the polished scrape as the kind of where a hard surface leaves on metal pliers. The soccer captain noticed the two bite angles and guessed at a twist. The art student watched a video of an alligator ambush and said, softly, that the scariest part was how little drama there was. Everyone found a piece of the puzzle, and together they rebuilt a moment at the river that none of us will ever see. That is the heart of paleontology for me. It is a human conversation across absurd time. We listen with rocks and respond with ideas, and the back and forth changes how we act in the present. Joy later painted the scene from the dinosaur's point of view, low and close to the water, with the eye of the predator just a reflection between ripples. She hung it in a community center near the coast, and for a week the local kids added sticky notes with questions. One read, "What did the babies eat?" and another, "Did they sing?" We do not know if Deinosuchus made the deep bellows that modern alligators used to call across marshes, but we do know that its young would have started small, eating insects and fish in quiet backwaters, trying not to be eaten themselves. Even giants begin as shadows among grass stems. Ask a simple question like that and suddenly the monster has a life cycle, a home range, and a storm season to survive. Suddenly it is an animal rather than a movie villain. That shift matters because it builds empathy with living wetlands. When you learn how a prehistoric river shaped everything around it, you learn to look more closely at the rivers we have now, their bends, their floodplains, their secret back doors to the sea. You notice how levees and channels change migration routes for fish, how salt pushes inland during drought, how a single cut bank becomes the busiest room in a landscape. The fossils are quiet, but the lesson speaks, and it says that edges are powerful places. On our final night in the field, we camped near a modern oxbow lake that curls off a slow river. At dusk the frogs began, then a barred owl, then a slap of tail from a small gator in the reeds. We set a microphone by the bank and let the dark do its work, recording the ordinary music of a wetland that has outlived empires. In the morning, while coffee steamed and mosquitoes negotiated truces around our wrists, we played back the audio and talked through what we had learned. The line from Deinosuchus to that young alligator is not a straight ancestry chart, but it is a line of ideas written in bodies. Stay low, wait long, spend energy where physics gives you leverage. It is also a line of vulnerability, when coastlines retreat or surge, when fresh and salt mix differently, when droughts squeeze rivers into trickles, ambush places change. A specialized ant can ride those changes only so far. If we love the drama of ancient predators, we owe the same attention to the habitats that let their modern cousins thrive. That is a practical, present-day takeaway from deep time. The past is not a museum, it is a manual with bent pages. Deinosuchus teaches patience at a tactic, and it teaches humility, because even the biggest body meets a limit when the world moves under its feet. I like to think that the dinosaurs learned the lesson too, in the wary way they approached water, in the way herds bunched calves inside a ring of adults at a crossing, in the way large predators paced and tested a bank before they lowered their heads. Every bite mark is both violence and education. Somebody survived, healed, and remembered. A riverbank fossil site is quiet until you read it, and then it becomes a classroom where the teacher is a pattern.